Welcome to Zen Money Monday, weekly conversations with innovators, thought leaders, and entrepreneurial junkies about building good businesses, exploring what the idea of Zen money really means, and how to achieve it. With your host, author, business strategist, and Zen Money CFO, Liz LaJoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to Zen Money Monday. Today, I want to talk about creating a decision maker's mindset, especially around your financial management in your business. You know, last episode we were talking about cash flow. This actually ties into that quite well because a lot of times our cash flow is impacted by how we make strategic or not so strategic decisions around our money. And we may not think of this as something that we can control. A lot of times we have very reactionary responses to money decisions, but the people who are most successful in their businesses, who grow as quickly as they want to grow or get themselves to a financial position they want to be in, do so because they start to take a look at things that they have been doing inherently and making some shift. So there's a really common, well-known decision-making loop chart that I'm going to try to describe to you guys verbally, and we'll see how that goes. But basically, in the middle, you start out with some kind of decision that we need to make. In this case, it's a money event. It comes in front of us and we have to decide whether we want to and how to engage in it. This might be an opportunity to go to a show or networking event. It might be a hiring decision. It might be around, where you put your dollars after they come in the door. Whatever it is, we all have a version of decision making that goes along with it. And the very first thing we do is we observe what's happening. And that sends a signal back to us around, starting to create some kind of decision around this thing in front of us, whatever it might be. And that signal helps us to orient ourselves. So the next thing that we go into, and this is all, there are 4 different stages kind of in a loop around the main event. And so we move from the observation phase to the orientation phase, which is really allows us to start to understand this decision in front of us. And then we move further around the circle, now to the bottom part, where we have a decision to make. We decide something. And in that deciding process, we're basically making a prediction about what we think our choice in action here, of what we're going to do and how it's going to affect us. So we make a decision based on not real facts in front of us, but some version of prediction about what is going to happen if we take path A versus path B. And then finally, we loop back around. So on the left side of the circle, now we have action. And in taking action, we learn. So we've observed something. It's signaled to us that we need to orient ourselves one way or another. We take that orientation and use it to make a decision, which is based on prediction because we don't know the outcome yet. And from that decision, we take action. And in the taking of action, we learn. And typically that puts us in front of another decision-making process, and we go through it again, right? We observe, we orient, we decide, and we act. All of our brains work this way, but I want you to think about the same visual model under a common money mindset loop. And if this feels familiar, then this is going to help you start to think a little more strategically and cohesively around your financial decision making. So we have the same money event, but somebody who is maybe less analytically inclined, more embedded in having a knee-jerk financial reaction, instead of observing and having this signal play back, we're actually going to, in the face of a new money event, we have an emotional trigger. And this typically signals something that we don't like. It might be a positive trigger, but often it's a negative trigger. And that moves us around our loop to the orientation process, which in this circumstance really means money stories, right? Where we're orienting ourselves to old money stories and we're understanding this money event based on those old stories. Based on that understanding and orientation around our old money stories, we move into the decision-making phase. And again, all of this happens in a split second. We move into a decision-making phase where it's not really a decision because it's based on old habits. So our decisions are based on our old habits. And so based on old habits, we come up with a prediction. So if you're the kind of person who has always lived their life where you've never felt like you've had enough money, we will often create a decision based on old habits that have put us in a position where we will never have had any money. And therefore, in this decision-making process, we are now predicting that we will continue to not have enough money. And then when we move to action, based on this prediction that we have created off of old stories, instead of action, we're actually taking reaction. So we're learning to continue all these old patterns. I hope this is making sense. In the verbal explanation of it, the visual is far more engaging. But that being said, you can see how the same decision-making process and the loop between observe, orient, decide, and act gets recreated on the emotional side with an emotional trigger, which signals money stories, which teach us how to orient to old stories and old habits, which inform our decisions and lead us into a reactionary phase around money, as opposed to proactive, action-oriented that is based on an orientation and prediction and learning circle of actual information in front of us. So those are the two differences between decision makers' mindset, which is learning from what is actually happening and actually in front of you and what has actually occurred, versus a common money mindset loop where we're in this creating old habits and old patterns over and over and over again. Why is this important? It's important because if we really want to grow our business, it's hard to do that if we're in that common money mindset space. And if we don't take a little bit of time to look into it, pull the threads and untangle it for ourselves and be aware of how we're making money decisions, it might be very difficult to grow to the level that we want to grow to. I see it over and over again where people who really, really want to do amazing things in the world are putting all the pieces in place, are trying to be very strategic, and yet bump up against this old stuff over and over again. And don't necessarily want to address it because it's hard and it's uncomfortable. But once they do, once we take 5 minutes to look at the discomfort around how you make money decisions, why you're not saving even though you know you should, how you feel so like, ugh, this is something I'm supposed to get, my act together on, but I never quite seem to do it. If we can get past that, then things really open up in your business. And we don't all have to be left brain analytical, automaton type people to get into the position to make good strategic financial decisions for ourselves. I bring this up today because I think it's just a nice window into, one, cutting ourselves some slack in understanding how we've gotten to the position we are now, if you're in a space you don't want to be in financially, and how you can really use a more, decision-oriented view to help you make your future financial decisions. If you go into any money event, anything in front of you, and really pay attention to these 4 areas and watch yourself observing, orienting, deciding, and then finally taking action, if we can slow that down a little bit for ourselves, we can start to see our habits and realize that sometimes what we think are logical decisions around spending in particular, but also pricing and how to pay ourselves and everything else, how all of that may be based on old habits and patterns more so than on making a solid decision for where you're at in your business today to get you from point A to point B. I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and we were talking about how difficult it is to stick to our plans. And this is part of the mindset conversation as well, in that, we'll spend some time dreaming and scheming and saying, I want my business to go from $500,000 to $1 million in the next 18 months. If that's the case, then we need to be very, very conscientious about where we put our resources, where we put our energies, and not really take our foot off the gas of driving that particular strategy. So oftentimes we will put a strategic plan in place and then we'll put it in a drawer somewhere and not really act on it. We'll talk about this more in the next episode, but for the moment, I just want you to stop for a second and think about the last few financial decisions you've made and how you've made them. Are you the kind of person who kind of flies by the seat of their pants, and if something comes up, you just very quickly say yes or no? If so, it might be really fun to play with this and see if you can, again, slow down that decision-making process and think through why you want to do something or why you've decided not to do something, and make sure it's really a smart, strong decision for your business and not just one that's caged in old knee-jerk habit. And if you are in a position where you're feeling like there's a lot of, kind of habitual training around finance, this is the time to tease that out, look at it, and again, slow things down and try to move into a more decision-oriented mindset so that you can be a little more proactive and a little less reactionary in your decisions around your money. I hope this is helpful. I am looking forward to talking further about strategy in our next episode, as I said. And if you would like to dive into this particular model visually, Why don't you join our new Zen Money Mastery workshop series for free? All you have to do is sign up and you'll get all of that delivered to your inbox. 7 days of workshops that will help you map out your version of Zen Money. All you have to do is go to zenmoneymap.com/workshop to check that out. And we will see you on the next episode. Hope you have a great day.